Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking something truly out of this world. Literally. We're taking a deep dive into a fascinating spiritual text that constructs this incredibly complex, multi-layered cosmic worldview, and it's all happening right here on Earth.
Okay, let's dive right into this premise. What if the soul of an extraterrestrial was living among us right now, just going about their day, experiencing human life? It's a massive hook, right? It totally challenges how we normally think about identity. And the text we're exploring today doesn't just treat this as a fun hypothetical. It operates on the framework that this is an active, everyday reality. So let's look at the source that lays out this whole cosmic dynamic.
The foundation for everything we're looking at today is a book called Conversations with Space People by Ryuho Okawa. Now, according to this text, the author actually conducts direct spiritual interviews. But he's not talking to little green men in spaceships. He's summoning alien souls that are currently residing inside human beings living on Earth today. It's a completely unique approach to extraterrestrial contact, spiritual channeling instead of physical landings. But to wrap our heads around how an alien soul can be inside a human, we really need to understand the specific rules of the spiritual universe laid out in this book.
So the absolute key here is this concept of the soul sibling. The text sets up a very specific cosmic architecture. Basically, a single human soul is actually just one part of a group of 6. Think of it like a team. You've got one core entity and 5 branches. The rule is that only one of these 6 takes on a physical body and lives on Earth, while the other 5 stay back in the spirit world to act as guardian spirits. But here's where it gets wild. What happens if one of those branches in the spirit world is actually an extraterrestrial?
Well, that brings us right to the first chapter of the book. The author identifies a specific human subject whose soul sibling is actually a Pleiadian, an extraterrestrial from the Pleiades star cluster. Through a spiritual summoning process, the author bypasses the human's normal everyday consciousness to speak directly to this Pleiadian guardian spirit. And what follows is this incredibly direct dialogue that maps out a sweeping, multi-planetary history.
Tracing her timeline, we find out this Pleiadian soul has definitely been around the block. According to the interview, her soul's journey actually started in the ancient past on Venus. From there, her people migrated to the Pleiades star cluster. Eventually, she made her way to Earth. And in a really fascinating twist, she reveals she had a past life on Earth, where she was born as a princess in the Arabian Peninsula, long before connecting to her present-day human subject in Japan. It's a massive chronological journey. But you have to wonder, what drives a soul to travel completely across the galaxy to come here?
The text makes her primary motivation crystal clear. During the interview, the Pleiadian soul expresses this incredibly deep, simple devotion. She literally just says, "El Cantare, I love him." Her journey across the stars wasn't about galactic conquest or some scientific mission. It was totally spiritual. She came to Earth specifically because she knew El Cantare, who is a supreme spiritual being in this belief system, was going to be born here, and she desperately wanted to experience his teachings directly.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep her historical connection to this figure really is. The text explains that way back when her people lived on Venus, this exact same supreme being taught them under a different name, El Mior. So her coming to Earth is described as almost a kind of cosmic homesickness. The Pleiadians deeply miss the teachings of love and harmony they originally received on Venus, and they are basically returning to the source of that teaching right here on our planet.
Which brings us to who the Pleiadian people actually are at their core. In the text, she outlines a very specific, deeply peaceful philosophy. Her civilization places its absolute highest values on love, harmony, and the pursuit of peaceful development. They're described as a highly peaceful species with a really strong, almost visceral dislike for any kind of conflict or fighting. They are basically the cosmic pacifists of this narrative. Now, looking at Earth through this hyper-peaceful Pleiadian lens gives us a really interesting perspective. During the dialogue, she notes that Earthlings have this really frustrating tendency to just get into fights and arguments over the absolute smallest things. To a being completely steeped in absolute harmony, the everyday friction and aggression of human life just seems chaotic and primitive. But human squabbles aren't even the main thing making her anxious on this planet.
The text actually introduces a much larger central tension, a hidden cosmic conflict happening right here on Earth. The Pleiadian reveals that our world is essentially a giant melting pot of different extraterrestrial souls, and let me tell you, they do not all share her peaceful philosophy. She's incredibly aware of the presence of other highly aggressive alien species sharing the planet with us, which creates a pretty volatile spiritual environment.
Chief among her concerns are the Reptilians. The text paints these beings in stark contrast to the Pleiadians.
Reptilians are described as reptile-like aliens who are intensely competitive, driven by a strict, almost ruthless mindset of survival and evolution. The text neutrally points out their carnivorous history, even mentioning that their original forms consumed Earth's mammals. They are positioned as the absolute apex predators of this cosmic ecosystem.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how perfectly it frames the central ideological battle happening quietly on Earth. It's not a sci-fi war with laser beams. It's a war of cosmic philosophies. On one side, we have the Pleiadians, championing love, harmony, and peaceful development. On the other side, the Reptilians, whose entire philosophy revolves around fierce competition and strict evolution. In fact, the text later notes that Reptilians don't even have a concept of heaven or hell. They literally only understand evolutionary progress and survival of the fittest. So you have these two profoundly opposing worldviews, both actively trying to influence the development of humanity.
As you can imagine, living in the middle of this ideological clash really takes its toll. In a surprisingly relatable moment of character depth, the Pleiadian soul confesses to the author, "I'm a little tired. I want to take a break in the Pleiades." It's this brief flash of vulnerability that shows just how heavy the burden of her presence here really is. Being constantly surrounded by human bickering and the looming, frightening presence of the Reptilians makes her mission on Earth spiritually exhausting for a being of pure harmony.
But despite that weariness and her genuine fear of these aggressive neighbors, she outlines a very clear, resolute mission. First, she is here to help spread the teachings of El Cantare to humanity. Second, and this is probably the most ambitious part, she actually intends to use that philosophy of love to bring harmony to those aggressive aliens like the Reptilians. And third, through all of this, she aims to guide Earth as a whole toward a path of peaceful development, essentially taming those chaotic evolutionary forces with spiritual harmony.
Which leaves us with this really profound question based on the framework of this text. If our world is actually a hidden melting pot of diverse cosmic souls, representing entirely different stages and philosophies of existence, will a philosophy of love and harmony ultimately be enough to tame the raw, primal forces of evolution and aggression? It's a totally fascinating lens to view human conflict and spiritual growth through, and it leaves you wondering exactly which cosmic ideology is winning out in our own daily lives. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.